Would you like some questions that can help you do a little reflecting? If so, for this weekly reading, we are using this card deck that will give you exactly that. If you want to see what questions come up, keep watching. Hi, it's Leia. Welcome to this episode of Diaries of a Witchy Creative Life, and welcome as well to another weekly reading. For this one, as always, we are doing shadow work, although we are using a deck that's quite different. It isn't a tarot deck, and sure, you can consider it a sort of oracle deck, but it doesn't look like a lot of the oracle decks that are out there. What we typically do here is look at the meanings of the cards that we pull and come up with questions related to those card meanings for us to ponder upon. These cards already have the questions on them. So for sure, I'll help your contemplation process by giving you more food for thought, even as we pull the cards and look at the questions on them. And I would say, simply allow yourself to go where the questions take you. Some of them may result in you going on a tangent that doesn't seem related to the original question, but if it helps you understand better, if it helps you grow, go with it. Besides, upon further inspection, I'm sure you're gonna see that there is a reason why your mind went there. There might be a memory related to that question, and that's why your mind went somewhere else that doesn't seem to be related to it. But that's awesome because it goes with how we do shadow work, which is to help us reconnect with those parts of ourselves that we've shunned, swept under the rug, are in denial of, so that we can begin to find peace with these parts of ourselves. If that sounds intriguing to you, I invite you to watch the other videos on this channel. I'll put a link to the readings playlist in the description because the readings here, even if the weekly ones are dated, they are actually timeless, regardless of when you come across these readings. They can still help you in your reflection or shadow work process. I put a date on the weekly ones so that I put at least one shadow work reading out for every week. But in the larger scheme of things and in your healing, the dates don't matter. After all, our readings here are not predictive. They're for healing and self-awareness. Now let's get started. We are going to look at 5 cards individually. I placed the shuffled card deck over there, so I can pull the top 5 cards for us to look at, one by one. Here we go with the first one. It is, what am I avoiding just because the next step is uncomfortable? Again, what am I avoiding just because the next step is uncomfortable? It doesn't exactly fit in the slot, that's why it's a little crooked, but let's see if I can straighten it out a little bit. So with this card, go ahead and think about your to-do list, whether you actually have one written out or if there's one in your head. And take a look at the items on that list. Is there anything in particular that you know is important, but you've been avoiding it? And sometimes, too, our to-do lists are unspoken. We may not have declared that I have to do this, but you know you should. Or you're getting a nudge or an inkling to do something about it. So what could this be for you? For some, it might be a talk with your significant other or your child, another family member, about something that needs to be addressed. But because whatever this is has a hint of confrontation to it, which a lot of us don't like, which a lot of us are not comfortable with, you may have been putting it off. While for others, you might have goals that actually excite you. But once the planning stage came into the picture, it became all too real. And now you haven't moved forward. Or this also could be about necessary changes, such as dropping habits that are no longer beneficial to you. Or maybe they never were, but you know now that it's time to no longer indulge in them. And these are all simply examples to jog your thoughts. It could be that your answer to this wasn't mentioned at all. So, what could this be for you? What are you avoiding because the next step is uncomfortable? Let's take this then and move on to the second card, which is, what am I doing about the things that matter most in my life? Again, that is, what am I doing about the things that matter most in my life? With this card, we are being called to reflect upon how we treat what is most valuable to us. Some of you out there might realize that activities that you know bring you a lot of joy, help you recharge, have now been pushed to the side. Maybe you're working too hard, not giving yourself a break, not allowing yourself to relax. Sometimes something new comes along, such as a relationship. It's easy for some, if not most of us, to get lost in a relationship when it's new, or for some, even the whole length of that relationship, where they realize once it's over that, wow, they basically set who they were aside to be more like the person they're with, or to always do what the person they're with wants. Activities for fun, or the meals you eat, or how you spend your time in general. Some people lose who they are if they aren't careful. And while for some of those people, it happens because the personality of the one they're with could be domineering or controlling even. Sometimes, even without coercion, if we don't take charge of our lives, we could get sucked in the direction of the values of whomever we are with. So yeah, think about it. Whether this refers for you to family and friends, hobbies, passions, goals. What are you doing about these things that matter most to you? If you discover that many of these have taken a back seat when you want them to be more present in your experience, this could be an opportunity to make the changes so that can happen. So let's put this away and move on to card number 3. It is, who is the type of person I want to become? Who is the type of person I want to become? When you think about this question, do some digging. Is it possible that your answer to this isn't truly what you want, but you decided that this is the person that you want to become because, let's say during your childhood, you were shamed for being good at something or being passionate about something, so you decided on something else instead. Or maybe there was some sort of traumatic experience when you went for something that meant a lot to you. For some, this could mean that when you entered a competition, you lost and you decided that you don't want to be a chef after all, or you don't want to be a singer after all. You no longer want to pursue dancing. So you stopped, even if once upon a time, these things meant the world to you. Could it be that you've maybe buried who you truly want to become and replaced that with something you felt was safer, less risky? That way, even if it didn't work out, what do you have to lose? Some of us, when we're younger, express to authority figures what we'd like to be and get talked out of it. We might be told that's an unrealistic dream, or we might even be laughed at by our peers, which leads us to decide not to pursue that dream anymore. Or maybe more along the lines of traits. Maybe someone has said that they want to be a kind, loving person always, only to be told by an adult or someone else that they trust that that isn't ideal because we live in a cutthroat world. So yeah, go ahead and answer this question straight up before you even think of all that. And once you have that answer, look at it and see if you sanitized that answer over the years. If maybe you took out the dreams and ambition and fire, or even the feeling in your original answer before you changed it somewhere along the way. And none of these questions have to be answered in one sitting. I feel like this is a sort of exercise where we allow the answers to evolve over time, because more information and more feelings could come up over the weeks or even months, for some people, over years of doing shadow work. Now let's move on. The question is, what are my limiting beliefs that hold me back in life? What are my limiting beliefs that hold me back in life? Limiting beliefs can sometimes be sneaky. They don't necessarily show up by us asking ourselves, okay, limiting beliefs, show yourselves. But keep your eyes and ears open so that you can catch yourself whenever there's something you want and you feel yourself pulling back from it or telling yourself all the reasons why it can't happen. That's something to take note of right there. For example, there's something that you say you really want to do, like read more, but then you hear yourself say, or even hear it in your head, that it's not going to happen though, because you don't have a lot of time. And while I am not going to tell you what to do with your time, maybe you can see if there is a part of you that's used to making excuses for why you can't have certain things or do things that matter a lot to you, and challenge yourself to make the necessary changes so that you can make this happen. Another way to see what some of your limiting beliefs may be is to take a look at how you feel about those who may have more than you, those that you feel have either been luckier or been more blessed. See how you feel about them and their circumstances in life. That could also reveal a lot for you to ponder on. If we don't do any shadow work, sometimes we find ourselves upset that someone has accomplished more than we have. And we can take a look at what we tell ourselves about why we can't advance as well. Let's say someone might realize that the reason they actually don't allow themselves to read is because they've always wanted to be an author. But since they don't do any writing, much less have any published works, they find it really challenging to read books that have an audience or that have been published. So pay attention and allow your answers to unfold over time if they don't come up immediately. Let us move on. This is, what is one thing I can remove from my life that would improve it? What is one thing I can remove from my life that would improve it? Is there anything in your life that you know it's time for that thing to go, but you've been holding on to it for whatever reason? Sometimes we may be really fond of something, but we know it's not beneficial. Other times, we're just allowing something to take up space in our lives, but we don't even necessarily like it or want it. Items that take up space in our homes, for example, that we don't use anymore, but because it's work to clean it up, we don't do anything about it. And since this is about taking baby steps, it doesn't even have to be an ambitious endeavor. You can start simply, and maybe if it inspires you, you keep going. Be that every week, every month. What is this one thing for you? And if there's resistance, even though you know that you'd be better off without this thing. Take a look at what keeping that thing has been giving you. That's why you don't want to let go. For example, someone out there might have an acquaintance, or you even call them a friend, but they're not a good influence on you. And yet you keep them around because they're well-to-do, and they treat you to a lot of stuff that you otherwise wouldn't have. Maybe fancy dinners or nights out, but you might not even enjoy their company. Or sometimes we hold on to items that meant a lot to someone we love and care about, but those items, other than that, don't hold any personal meaning for us and are only taking up space. Not even necessarily in our homes, but in our lives. Let's say there's a property that a loved one left you when they passed, and it takes a lot out of you to maintain that property, but you feel like you're losing more of your remaining connection to that loved one by getting rid of it, so you don't. So what is this one thing for you? Thank you so much for joining me for this video. If it was helpful for you and you enjoyed it, I invite you to take a look at the other videos on this channel if you haven't yet. And I also invite you to subscribe to this channel and get notifications so you don't miss a thing. I'll be back soon with more videos on healing, self-awareness, personal growth, shadow work, and the like, so stay tuned. In the meantime, do take care of yourself. Until next time, bye for now. Stay tuned for more Diaries of a Witchy Creative Life.